They're very, very great presentations. And today we're talking about cooperative learning strategies. And next week we'll talk about drama in the classroom. I'm Shelly Terrell, and that's my Gmail. So you can, if you need anything or need any help or want to ask me questions, then you're more than welcome to. And the wiki for this is technologyforkids.pvworks.com/cooperative learning. And if you just remember the technologyforkids.com, .pvworks.com, then you'll be able to see a button for the cooperative learning and all the other webinars that we've been having, and we'll have at least 50 of them. So there's plenty of learning to go around. Cooperative learning gets the students to collaborate, communicate, and create. As some people stated earlier, some of you stated in the chat box, it's definitely effective group work, effective teamwork. I use it as young as my 5-year-old, so I use a lot of cooperative learning, and I'll share my story of how I started using it and why I use it. Kids love to learn, but sometimes they struggle with it, and it's really tough for them. When it's too tough, sometimes they tend to act out, as I found. If it's way too tough for them, they need some help. And it's always good to have someone else along the ride. And then if they see it as a common goal, then they're not only working for themselves, they're also working for somebody else. And that's what cooperative learning really brings out, in my experience, is effective teamwork. You're all aiming towards the same goal. So maybe we use teamwork in our classes already. But what exactly is cooperative learning? How is it different than teamwork? Well, it's effective teamwork. Yes, we can divide our students into teams, and we probably, many teachers probably do that, or into pairs. But cooperative learning has 5 elements, according to Kagan, that makes it effective. Jerry said one of them earlier, Siberia, which was, I think it was one of them where all of them have the same goal or something like that, but we'll talk about them. The way I got into it is I came to teach in Germany, and I taught an English camp of 7 to 8-year-olds, and the kids look like this. I borrowed this little cartoon from Marissa Constantinidis, a great Celta trainer. She's fantastic. And this is what my classroom looked like. Times this by 10, because there's these objects on the wall, so the kids could actually climb on the walls. So the kids were literally climbing the walls, and they were shooting paper airplanes, and that was me saying, "Be quiet, children," to children who don't speak any English at all. I went home and I cried. I just cried because it was so awful. It was a horrible day. But I'm a fighter, so I came back, and I never had trouble teaching. I never quite had this problem. I don't know if it's the language barrier. I had taught ESL to students in Texas before, but I think one of the reasons was the low language barrier. But also, one thing that really I thought was terrible was the kids started bullying up on one kid, and it was 2 kids who started it. And this poor kid was picked on the whole entire day, and I felt so sorry because I didn't know what to do. So I remembered back to my master's class, and I remembered, you may have heard, how many of you have heard of Alfie Kohn? Have you all heard of Alfie Kohn? Yeah, some teachers do shout like that. He's in the wiki, but let me go ahead and put his name out. He's talked to some of us. Alfie Kohn is a real progressive educational speaker. He really promotes not having any awards, no stickers, anything like that. Instead, he says, he's really for cooperative learning and to take out the competition. Um, so one of the elements, I'll talk about that. And when I first learned about AlfiCode, I thought it was really radical. I thought, oh, this is crazy. Of course, you have to give kids stickers and things like that. But it was so different that I did realize that I had to look at myself and I had to see what exactly I was doing. And so I started going back to that, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to eliminate the competition from my from the environment of my classroom. Sorry about that. Because I didn't want the kids to pick on the little boy anymore. I was just so heartbroken by that. So I changed things, okay? And I changed cooperative learning. I went back to that and I said, okay, I am going to to, to try this because what I did before didn't work. So one of the elements of cooperative learning, and I'll show you how I integrated this, but one of the elements is team formation. Well, the students didn't understand any English, but one of the standards was for them to learn American culture. That was one of the standards of this class. So I thought, okay, team formation. Oh, thanks, Jerry, for sharing that. One of the standards, one of the things of team formation is that cooperative learning says to get many abilities together, many cultures, and many genders all mixed up in the teams. So you don't only create teams. You don't just say, okay, you, and you work together. Instead, you have to put some thought into it, which means you have to know your learners. One of the things I started doing with my adult learners is I started giving them the first day of class, because I also teach adult learners here, and teenagers. I started giving them skills tests to see what their strengths were and what kind of learner were they. Are they a visual learner, kinesthetic? And I don't know if you know that, but for any type of learning style that you believe the kid has, sometimes we can take observation notes. Sometimes we just know this from observing the child. Then I started putting the teams together that way. So I put some thought, and they do have some surveys for little children as well that have symbols so they can kind of figure out the answers. So I got the students in teams, and I called them tribes because we were learning about Native Americans. And I said, okay, so you all each get to be tribes. So I incorporated it with the subject that we were teaching at the time. And I think that's really important too, is that you do that. Each one got to choose their name. Each one got to choose their team colors. Each team had to draw up a banner of what their role was. One was, of course, the chief. One, of course, was the shaman. And one was, a gatherer or something. They all each played a role in this team. And this is, I thought it incorporated nicely with the Native American theme. So I tried to make everything like that. They got to make their own, chief wear and hats and jewelry and things like that to kind of appeal to the boys and the girls. Another part of it is structuring. Structuring means, okay, now you have to give the task. And a task means that each member has to have a piece of the complete whole. So tasks can't be things that one person can do. It really has to be tasks you think of. For example, they have a lesson called the jigsaw. And the jigsaw is that the learners each have, like, for example, part of a sentence, and they have to match it with somebody else in the team that has that second half of the sentence. Well, then after those two pairs get together, they go and they find another team that has a completed sentence, and they make an entire story together. So you go from the individual, who has to meet up with the partner, find their partner in the classroom, and then they all get together and the class comes as a whole. So this is effective teamwork. And this is not, if one person is missing, it can be very difficult to find the story. So this is the kind of task they're talking about when they say structuring, way you design the lessons. And then accountability. Each of the students learns, they learn that they have to depend on each other. Now this can be tough. Team building skills are tough. So they really need to be able to each have a task and feel important. So I think it's good to, at the beginning, to ask what they want to do. I give them a choice. I say, okay, these are the tasks to complete this goal. What part do you want to be? And just know that next time you're not going to be able to do this. So they switch. Someone's the team chief the next time. And I've never had a problem with students volunteering. And some, they don't want to be the chief. So not everyone wants to be the leader. And I try to kind of pair sometimes, and maybe it doesn't work for everyone, but ones that kind of are like leaders with those that might be very shy, to kind of get them out of their shell. And that's worked for me. So as long as each of them has a task and feels like they're contributing and that they're really needed, I think it really, really helps. You can see each of them doing here. Now, what role is teacher playing? Anybody guess what role the teacher is playing? Yes, yay! You get some virtual chocolates, George, because you were the first one to say it. Yeah, the facilitator, definitely. So everybody, all of you have it. Yeah, so it really, that's what I love most about cooperative learning. You saw those kids and the teacher saying, please be quiet. Well, what I found is with cooperative learning, it's easier to manage big groups because then you can, they're so concentrated on their task, you can go from group to group and group, and you can make sure that they're being accountable. You can watch and you can observe. So if somebody says, oh, Timmy's not